Hi, and welcome to Love and the Planets for the week of January 29th, 2018. I'm Armand Diaz in New York.
And I'm Margaret Gray in Dublin, Ireland.
Margaret, we have the full moon in Leo, and that's always a lot of fun. That's always a great party moon. It's romantic, it's creative, and it's an eclipse this year. What do you make of it?
I get the feeling you really like this full moon, Armand.
I do.
Well, I think it's a very interesting one because, of course, being in Leo, we're talking about the heart energy, which we've talked about before, but particularly because it's with the North Node. So it feels like a really important time that something may come up with individuals and in relationships, which really has to do with where we want to step into the future. And of course, full moons are about letting go. But, as we're letting go of something, we're also preparing to kind of plant something new. Now, just to mention that, of course, this is a blue moon because it's a full moon. It's the second full moon of the month. So it feels particularly action-packed because, and we haven't fully probably recovered from the other full moon. So here we are in a second full moon. I mean, what do you think, Armand?
What I get is that the eclipse energy, we get the full moon lunacy even more so when it's an eclipse, but it's this lunar eclipse which covers the moon. I feel that it's kind of like it's sort of like in the middle of the proceeding. It's like you're having a big party and in the middle of it, like the lights go out for a little while, which, that could be fun. There could be a side to that too, but it's a little bit of a hiccup in the festivities. It's a little bit of a change that happens. This also, as you said, the moon is with the North Node. The sun is shining from Aquarius, but it's shining to its home sign of Leo. I think that there's like a pretty strong energy for connection and, getting down to a sort of soul level with this. Although I think it's a little tricky. I think, lunar eclipses are tricky to navigate, but very emotional. Everything's popping.
Yes, and I think, like you said, it's like the light goes out for a little bit. So it's almost like we feel the emotions, but we can't quite grasp them, and that can throw us for a loop, really. Now, I think even more so because this one is quincunx Neptune, so it's a little bit kind of obscured. It's a little bit foggy. There could be a little bit of confusion, even more so. Now, what do you make, Armand, of the Sun conjunct Venus and the South Node?
Well, I think the emphasis is on friendship. I think the emphasis is on some of those things that are maybe a little bit less romantic, you and me type of thing. And I think that's one of the tensions of this moon. That's why it's a good party moon. It's a good moon to go out and party and see what happens. And it doesn't necessarily emphasize one-to-one romantic connections, although you might find somebody in the group.
Yes, because when our hearts are open, that's when we tend to really meet people, don't we? Because we're kind of open to connecting, whether it's connecting with new friends or connecting with somebody who might become a significant other. It could be quite a fun time. Now, of course, Mercury also goes into Aquarius. So I guess that kind of adds to what you were saying about friendships in that I always think Mercury in Aquarius can be a little detached in intimate relationships because it's not really about intimacy. I mean, it gives us that ability to see the bigger picture. But I think in close, intimate relationships, it's almost like at times there's such a detachment that it isn't so easy to connect emotionally, kind of. What do you think?
It could help a little bit, having Mercury in a sort of a little bit more detached intellectual sign, that could help a little bit within the context of the lunacy, the emotionality of a full moon eclipse. So that might actually help a little bit. But I think when we get to the weekend after the eclipse, we have some interesting stuff going on with Mercury sextile Mars. And we also have Venus square Jupiter.
True, and I think, you're right, because, when I think at times of full moon, there's always a little bit more pressure on relationships because so many emotions are floating around. And when people are close, it's like distinguishing whose emotions those are and how to deal with them. And it can take a lot of effort to really look after oneself without putting that onto the other person. So it all depends whether relationships are feeling fairly strong and sturdy, or whether they're feeling a little vulnerable. And, we've mentioned this before, but when relationships are vulnerable at these times, then it can really bring issues up to the surface. So I think with the Mercury sextile Mars, I think really to be careful of words that might be said in haste without heart behind them. I think that's just something to look out for.
I think also, well, it's a flowing aspect, and Jupiter is square to Venus, but those two planets get along so very well that I don't feel that they ever really tangle all that. I could kind of picture it, Jupiter in Scorpio and Venus in Aquarius. I mean, that's you can go out and meet somebody. That could be a little bit of a pickup type of aspect, but it has a sociability. You may go a little over the top with things, but I don't really see that as being such a bad aspect, unless you get some sort of jealousy type of thing coming up with that scorpionic energy coming up and the Mars sort of thing getting in there. But to tell you the truth, I mean, unless you're in a particularly vulnerable place in the relationship, I don't really see that happening either.
True. So really what we're kind of saying is, just to be a little cautious around the full moon, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And then towards the weekend is really quite a nice time to really socialize, go out, be with friends. And even around the full moon, what we're really saying is that maybe it's more a friendship type energy than it is kind of a love intimate energy.
That's what we're saying. Let's see how it goes.
Absolutely. And please give us feedback. What are your thoughts on this lunar eclipse? See you next week, Armand. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.